Welcome to this podcast. My name is Chris Kanakandi, family pastor at Highway Community and seminary student at Fuller. I've enjoyed Foundations of Practical Theology this quarter, and I'm happy to give you a snapshot of some things I've learned along the way. I'll be reflecting on 4 key learning areas of this class, beginning with spiritual reflections. We began each week with a spiritual reflection that included a devotional, scripture, prayer, and reflection questions. And these reflections are a great reminder of the importance of spending regular time with God in solitude, creation, scripture, and prayer. A practice that's been shaped by these reflections for me is one of posture. I continue to reflect on what it would look like for me to incorporate a posture of compassion toward others, obedience to Jesus, and justice for the marginalized. A fundamental skill to develop as we grow in ministry leadership is the ability to provide and receive constructive feedback. So the second learning area is related to a peer editing and review process we engaged in for some theology blogs. One important thing I learned right away is that the system really matters. People should have clear instructions and be able to post assignments, grade each other, and provide helpful feedback with ease. And communication is very important. Another takeaway from this learning experience is the importance of differentiation from colleagues in a peer grading environment. If I wasn't able to differentiate, I could easily take a colleague's suggestions or grading personally and feel slighted, and that would prevent me from learning from the feedback and improving my assignment, and I might feel some resentment. It's important to foster mutual respect and trust in these environments. Trust and respect are also foundational for the third learning area, collaborative work. Even though we broke out into groups of 2 co-leaders, one leader naturally emerged from the start. And this worked out well for us because he helped initiate a communication platform and he set a standard for all of us to follow. On the flip side, one person didn't participate much, so the group had to move on without his input, and it was okay. This felt like a real scenario in just about any kind of group work, including a volunteer-centric organization like the church. Probably my biggest takeaway from the collaborative work experience is the need for flexibility and grace. My schedule didn't align with my co-leader, but we were both flexible and tag-teamed in a kind of wonderful way. The group also had differing schedules and timeline expectations, so we had to be flexible with each other and trust that we would finish the assignment on time. I mentioned grace because at least one of the case studies was on a challenging topic, and it became apparent that we had a variety of opinions and theological beliefs within our group. Again, this felt like a real-life scenario in the church where we needed to navigate different and sometimes divisive opinions and beliefs with grace and truth. Last but not least, the fourth learning area includes course materials. And here I'll share 3 key insights. One key insight comes from Ray Anderson's lecture on the shape of practical theology. Anderson encourages pastors to do Christopraxis by ministering Christ in the presence of the real world. And a practical example is the age-old argument of women in ministry leadership. Anderson notes that instead of arguing for scriptural support of equality of power, our theology should be about full freedom and equality of personhood. Another key insight is from Scott Cormode's Innovative Church. Before we can invite people into the gospel story, we need to know their stories, and we do this by listening to their longings and losses. This helps us build empathy and listen for big lies that impede discipleship. The last insight to mention is from 2 views on homosexuality, the Bible, and the church. Stephen Holmes is more conservative than I am, but he provides a good model for open conversations among people who disagree. Holmes welcomed input from colleagues and ultimately concluded with the thought that he could be wrong. I found the inherent humility in his posture refreshing and something all scholars, seminarians, and pastors should emulate. These learning areas culminate in the practice of the practical theology, or PT cycle. Mark Branson notes that practical theology is centered on discerning God's presence and activities in a current situation, fostering awareness, critical reflection on assumptions, broadening of sources, careful listening, nurturing of imagination, and prayerful experiments. That's what we did in this class. These learning areas are pieces of this PT framework, and the process will hopefully lead to faithful action and new praxis.